Okay guys, so until now we have discussed the basic concepts. क्या concepts होता है? Rules, as I have said, syllogisms वो बताएंगे थोड़ी देर में या next session में. So now the important thing is the application of all this logic. जितना भी logic हम लोग पढ़े सबका application. But before we go to actual application of all these concepts, it is very important कि आप you should be aware about certain terminologies which are used in critical reasoning. Now these terminologies are, number one, it is premise. Number two, argument. Number three, assumption. Number four, conclusion. Number fifth, inference. So these are the 5 important terminologies that you will be facing while dealing with any question of any question of critical reasoning or the application of logic. What is premise? Premise is the kind of statement which gives you an information. Premise is the kind of statement which gives you an information. Now, remember one thing always while you are dealing with questions related to logic. Logic is not a test of your knowledge. Logic is not a test of your knowledge. Logic is a test of how you can use the rules and apply the rules in order to come to the correct conclusion. You have to take it into consideration that the information which has been given in the premise is correct in itself. Okay. So when it comes to these terminologies, the first one being premise. Premise का मतलब होता है any statement, कोई भी statement which is true, जो अपने आप में सही है. Any kind of statement which is true in itself or which gives you an information is referred to as premise. Second terminology is argument. Argument is a set of premises. If there are 2, 3, 4 certain number of premises, then it would be referred to as an argument in itself. Third, assumption. Now in every kind of argument there is a certain assumption. On the basis of that assumption only you can come to a certain definite conclusion. So along with premises, in order to come to a conclusion with respect to logic, you also need certain assumptions. आपको कुछ मानना पड़ता है. So these assumptions are where on the basis of the premises you can come to a conclusion. Thereafter comes the conclusion. The conclusion is the derivation from the given argument. Conclusion is the derivation from the given argument. Now, with respect to conclusion, it is important that conclusion always follows from specific elements to general elements. That means a conclusion will always talk about will always draw itself from the specific elements and come to a general conclusion. And as far as inference is concerned, inference is not actually given in the argument. Inference is something that follows from the premises or which can easily or also follow from the conclusion. You cannot come to an inference directly. You can only draw the inference, you can only see the inference, you cannot come to a definite conclusion. Like conclusion is something that you can easily see on the basis of the given arguments, but inference is something that you cannot see on the face of it. It is somewhere hidden in those statements and we have to draw the inference from the given set of arguments. Now as far as the difference between inferences and conclusions is concerned, it is very important to note that conclusion talks about specific class based on general statement. As I said, that conclusion follows from general elements, and talks about specific elements. Okay, that means it talks about the specific elements from general, from the given entire class. However, inference is opposite of conclusion. Inference talks about general. It talks about general elements from specific elements. This means that if you find a category, तो जब there is information given about general elements, that means in general बहुत सारी चीजों के बारे में आप बात करते हैं, and then from that information you come to a conclusion with respect to one or some of the elements, यानी कि general elements से आप specific element पे जब आते हैं, तो that means you are drawing a conclusion. But when from specific elements, when you are talking about specific elements and then coming to a conclusion, or then coming to an argument, or then drawing an information with respect to other specific other general elements, specific elements से information draw करते हैं about general elements, then this would be referred to as inference. An example would be, for say there is this statement, all A is B. Now all A is B. Now this conclusion I am drawing from the premise all A is C, all C is B. Therefore you can easily see from the given premises, you can easily come to the conclusion that all A is B. But some B is A. Some B is A. This is the kind of conclusion, or this is the kind of conclusion that you cannot directly draw. This is the kind of inference that you can draw from the given set of premises. But this is not the kind of conclusion that you can draw. Therefore, that's a small difference between conclusion and inference. This is very important. In conclusion, from specific elements, you go to general elements. In inference, from general elements, you go to specific elements. I'm sorry guys. With respect to inference, you go from specific elements. You talk about specific elements and then you draw a conclusion about general elements. With respect to conclusion, you talk about general elements and then give a conclusion about specific elements. So that's the difference between inference and conclusion. With this, the basic terminologies end in this session. We have come to know about the basic concepts and the application of logic with respect to the CLAT examination. In the next session, we would be discussing about the different examples on the basis of which critical reasoning is used and critical reasoning is applied with respect to logic, and at the same time how it is used to draw conclusion, or you can strengthen the argument, you can weaken the argument, you can draw assumptions, you can draw inferences, and there are different application based questions which would be discussed in the next class. Till then guys, keep reading, study the basic concepts which are very important. On the basis of these concepts only you would be able to deal with the questions in the CLAT, and there is CLAT Adda always to help you guys. All the best.